But yeah, it's good to see you guys. I hope that you guys are keeping safe. It is still COVID-19. I know that, a lot of you are still sneaking out without your mask. I see you. I see what you've been doing. And a few of you are still not forgetting to wash your hands. Hey, don't forget to wash your hands. And don't forget to social distance. It's really, really important that, look, COVID, even though like things are gradually coming down, it's still important for us, especially now the borders are open, especially in Ghana. Make sure that you are social distancing, that you are wearing your mask. Obviously, if you have to eat some jollof rice, you have to take off the mask. And if you're going to eat some nice chicken, but overall, keep safe, keep washing your hands. Today's topic is something that's very dear to my heart because I am dyslexic myself. And I found out at a very later stage of my life when I was at university. And it was one of the teachers was like, have you ever had a dyslexic test? And I was like, what is dyslexic? What is that? And, he went through the process with me and then, I got help. And then, I met Elizabeth, who's going to be on the show. She's doing amazing things in the space when it comes to dyslexic people and supporting the community, championing. I remember one time, actually, guys, I must say this before I introduce her. She invited me to her event. I think it was to start at 6:00 or whatever. She sent me the address. And guess what? Because of my dyslexia, I put the wrong postcode in. I think it was SW something. I think it must have been like SW13 or whatever, and I must have put SW60 something. And then I got to the event late. And then, when I introduced myself to the crowd, I was like, guys, come on, allow me. Dyslexia, I put the wrong postcode. Everyone's like, no, you're forgiven. Everyone was like, you are forgiven, Dentaa, you are forgiven. But no, it's something that we really need to talk about. I remember growing up, my parents were always saying, wabong, you don't know, you're not reading as you should, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And obviously they didn't understand. But now we are in a world where we need to be educating ourselves and not bringing children's confidence down because of something that they are going through. But, before I bring on my guests, I must obviously say a big thank you to our sponsors, World Remit. Thank you so much for sponsoring us on our show. If you want to join 5.7 million people that are sending money worldwide, make sure that you join World Remit. Go on the website. I will send you a special link as well that you can get free transfers. And, basically send a loved one some money this COVID. There's a lot of people not working out there in the continent. They've lost their jobs. So it's up to you guys to also support them by sending money back home to Ghana or Africa or wherever it is that you're sending money to. And a big thank you to Prodigy. For those who you love jollof rice, if you want this jollof rice seasoning, you will thank me later. Trust me, it is so nice. Go on the website, order one. Everywhere in the world you can get it. She does amazing shit or all-purpose seasoning, whatever it is that you're looking for. Go on the website right now and order yours. And a big thank you to Vesta London Beauty for this lovely lip glaze. Thank you so much for always making my lips look good. Again, guys, look, we are supporting our own. So make sure that you go out there and purchase one for your girlfriend, for your wife, for your sister. Go out there and buy. Let's support our own. So let me see where everybody's watching me. Oh, Khadija. Hi, Khadija. Hi, Joe. Western Goddess. Hello. Nice to meet you. Please, guys, don't forget to share your pages. Just because you are watching, don't stop somebody else from watching and getting blessed from the message and the teaching that we're going to be teaching today. And our stories, we're going to hear from 3 amazing people who are going to share their stories. So it's important that you share your pages. If you are watching on YouTube, you can share on Twitter, you can share on LinkedIn, Facebook, all of that. And don't forget to subscribe as well. And if you're watching on Facebook, do a watch party. Do a watch party and get some friends on to watch as well. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Elizabeth first. Queen Elizabeth, I call her because, once your name is Elizabeth, then you know that you're the queen. Even in the Bible, Elizabeth was great. So let me introduce you to Queen Elizabeth. Hi, Lizzie.
Hello, Dentaa. How are you? How are you? How are you?
I'm good, thank you, sis. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Very, very good. Awesome. I was just in the background laughing at everything you're saying. It's just great. It's such an honor to be on your show today. Real honor, honestly.
Thank you so much. Honestly, like I was saying to the audience, the first time that we met was at your event. And I was late because I typed in the wrong postcode. It took me a while to figure out that, I swapped my numbers around. But eventually I made it. But, for people that don't know what you do, you are champion things when it comes to dyslexic. Can you just tell us a bit about your role, what you do, and why you decided to set up your foundation?
So my name's Elizabeth Techi. Some people may know me as Lizzie because it is what it is. And some may know me as Adwa, in the Ghanaian community. But it's just such an honor to be on your show today. And I feel so privileged to be part of today's show. And I think one of the questions is to say, what kind of prompts me to set up HY? Now, you know and I know, we're both from Ghana. And there are certain things that we cannot talk about. And there are certain issues that when we are going through, we are often told, listen, so-and-so's doing it, try harder. Look at our course next door. She's got a master, she's got a degree. What's wrong with you? You've got to try harder. I was basically sick and tired of hearing that all the time because I could never have been the same as our course next door, simply because of my hidden disabilities. Now, mine's just not dyslexia. There's 4 conditions in one. So that's dyslexia, dyspraxia. Some may say, what's that? Timmy, who's going to be coming on the show, can go in depth with that, simply because my dyspraxia does not hinder me as much as my dyslexia and my dyscalculia. Now, the dyscalculia is the maths. So as big and grown up as I am, my times table is a no-no. I think when you send the flyer, you put the time on there. It's like 7:30 GMT, B and stuff. What the hell is all this? I don't get any of it. I'm like, just tell me the time and I'll be there. So numbers are a real issue for me. I can't measure distances. I can't measure if I'm baking a cake, how many ounces I need. I don't know what these things mean. Now, I'm sure my 10-year-old could add up a lot of the things I can't. And of course, I have a condition also called Erlen syndrome, which is when letters and numbers all mumbo jumbo on paper. So you can imagine me in the classroom, particularly in Ghana when I was growing up. Now, the cane was mine every day. I was ready to receive those, the sort of cane you get when you don't get the numbers right. Yeah. Because to be honest, a lot of my friends that may be watching may think, that's why she was always so used to the punishment when I was growing up. I was ready for my cane. I was ready for my belt. I was ready for everything because I just don't get it. And I still don't get it. Now, fast forward, I was at a very desperate place and I needed help. I didn't want to be stuck sort of not doing much for myself. And that's not because it was a choice. It's purely because my condition was hindering me to move forward. So I kind of forced myself to go to uni. I got there with no GCSE, no qualifications whatsoever. And the reason why I was allowed to go to uni is because I've got industry experience. I'd worked for over 25 years, and that's what they took into consideration. Now, I just wanted to say, it's been a pretty tough journey, to the extent that I wouldn't say that it's easier now. Dyslexia never leaves you. It lives with you for life. And I think it's a great honor to sort of be speaking from a sort of typical Ghanaian Black platform to make people be aware that it is a hidden condition. It is something that can stop you from achieving. But if you can get the help you need, you can excel to great things. And to be honest, Dentaa, you're a typical example of what one can achieve with a help in place. And I just wanted to really echo that.
No, absolutely. And even till now, when I'm going up on stage and I have a script, the team kind of knows that if I miss a line or I miss a word, that is me done. So then I just have to speak from the heart. I remember every Google Awards, I've never, ever been able to finish my speech because I always miss out a word or something. And then I just have to go into Dentaa mode, you just speak from the heart, try and figure it out what you wrote and just deliver. And that's how I've been able to deliver. And you're right, it's lived with me, it's with me. And even when I I'm on the board meetings, I'm on so many boards, and then to even like them to say, oh, maybe recap, can you read the section where I get my heart is pumping, like because I'm just so scared that I'm going to embarrass myself, that I'm not going to read it well, and even pronouncing some of the words, you're just so frightened that you're going to get it wrong. But like you said, I've been able to just, Charlie, whatever will happen, happen. Like,
oh, I just have to laugh.
I just made it a point not to stop me from where I'm going.
Absolutely.
And also what's helped as well nowadays on email is that Grammarly, where it's helping you structure, and even before you even write, it's told you, and I'm like, yep, that's it, conversation, perfect, full stop. And so there are things now that are helping us to be able to write emails, because I hate writing emails. I can't. I'd rather send a voice note. And even like you, Lizzie, we'll talk about this other day, but you rather send a voice note than an email, because just thinking about the construction of the email is also something that you get very worried about, whether you're going to be able to put it in the right frame.
Absolutely.
And there's been so many occasions where on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, I've put a post up and I've missed a letter, and somebody nicely would DM me and be like, Dentaa, you missed out there. And I'm like, oh my God, let me quickly edit that, And what I found interesting is that sometimes, Lizzie, I don't know if it happens to you, but when I'm reading somebody else's, I pick out their mistake, but I can't seem to see mine.
That is so true. And that is dyslexia in a nutshell. It's actually like that. And that's why it's very sort of confusing for people, because I can proofread other people's work. But my one is mumbo jumbo. Yes. And that's why a lot of people find it very confusing, because it's like, but you managed to do this yesterday. Why can't you do it today? I can't. And I can't explain to you why I can't. And it can be a very confusing condition. And for that reason, a lot of teachers and, parents don't get it. They don't understand. Even if you do say you've got dyslexia, it's like, really? But you're doing really well for yourself. And you're like, well, actually, I have so many people supporting me to even get that Elizabeth on paper, because sometimes they said the A and the B or mumbo jumbo. And honestly, I used to be very ashamed. I must be honest, Dentaa. I used to be very ashamed of having this condition. But I also find that it was really holding me back in the things I wanted to achieve. And that's why A2I Dyslexia was born, to really help people who needs that support, and not to be ashamed, and look at all these great role models that have got dyslexia and do really well for themselves. But I think the most important thing is to own it, accept that it is real, it is there, and you can have this condition, and then get the help you need and move on from there.
Absolutely. I think I'll invite Tumi now on, and we'll have Raheem after. So let's have Tumi. Hi, Tumi.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me on. As soon as you mentioned shito, I'm just hungry now. I need food. Because that's one thing that Ghanaians, you guys do it so well. Like, guys, I tell my Nigerian people all the time, once you taste shito, it will change your life.
Absolutely, it certainly will. So, but thank you so much, Tumi, for coming on the show and also coming to share your story and your journey.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, tell us briefly a little bit about yourself, how you found out about your condition and how it's impacted your life.
So that's really interesting, because I was diagnosed with dyslexia at the age of 4. So I've always known that I've had dyslexia. Oh, wow. I tell people I knew that I was dyslexic before I realized I was Black, because I was different from other people in Sunday school, other people in my family. It was clear. So, for example, you know how you're in like class or Sunday school where you're like, people ask, can you read out loud? Yeah. Well, then when it was my turn to read a Bible verse in Sunday school, I will struggle, for example. Or
Yeah.
when you're playing football, I was just not the best kid at football. Always picked last in the football team. Or when you're in a party and there's a dancing competition, people look at you like, why are you dancing like an Oyobo boy? Oyobo, basically Nigerian term for white guy. And the reason I mention all of these is because dyslexia is slightly different from dyslexia. Dyslexia is more to do with words. Dyslexia, another word for term for dyslexia is developmental coordination disorder. So it's all to do with coordination. Before the term dyslexia, people used to know it as clumsy child syndrome. That's not to say that people who are dyslexic do not struggle with reading and writing, but the main thing that differs is to do with coordination. But since then, to the glory of God, I'm now a research assistant at Newcastle University. My research is in evidence synthesis and health economics. And last year, I started a social media platform on Instagram called The Black Dyslexic, highlighting the intersectionality of dyslexia and other neurodivergent conditions such as dyslexia and autism and dyslexia in the Black community. Because one thing that I've always said is, one thing I realized growing up, because growing up, I was part of Dyslexic Youth or Dyslexic Foundation, and I'll hear white people saying, as a dyslexic, I feel like I need to work 2 or 3 times harder than my than my non-dyslexic or non-dyslexic counterparts. But then when I'm with my African or Caribbean brothers and sisters, they're saying exactly the same thing because of the color of their skin. So I'm here thinking, wait just a minute. If dyslexics and dyslexics have to work 2 or 3 times as harder, and Black people have to work 2 or 3 times as harder to get to where they want to be, how much more me that have those combined conditions? And for me, that called a certain type of resilience. To the glory of God, I was able to excel at at school with GCSEs, A levels, went on to my degree to do my masters. But the reason I was able to have all of that support was because I was fortunate enough to go to a private school with smaller class sizes, and unfortunately, people from our communities may not have the privilege or the access to pick certain schools that would give them the certain type of support that they need to achieve what they need um, with a neuro developmental condition such as dyslexia and dyspraxia. So these are some of the reasons that I'm passionate about it. I also say that I was so severely dyspraxic that it was obvious to everyone at the age of 4 what would have happened if instead of being born in London, I was born in Lagos. My mom had only been in London for 2 years at the time. That could have been a very, very practical situation, and my life outcomes could have been completely different. So thank you for having me, and this is why I'm passionate about it.
No, thank you so much. I think let me invite Raheem on to introduce himself, and then we'll dive into today's, the questions that I have. And also, I've just seen somebody, a comment actually. She says, Afrik says, I love you, sisters. I'm dyslexic. I accepted my condition since there is nothing I can do to change it. I just graduated with 2 degrees in engineering and economics. Come on.
Congratulations. We'd love to see that. Amazing.
You can do it. You can do it. This is so nice to see. Raheem, what has been your journey? What has been your story?
Wow, esteemed panel. I mean, first thing, I think I might have to get an order for that jollof rice, because I've already had an argument about jollof and rice and peas here in London, and I actually sided with Ghanaian jollof. So that's another
let's
conversation
let's
altogether.
not talk about that. Like
Right,
whose
right.
pillow
But
is better.
we'll,
Let's not
we'll
do
bring
that.
we'll bring it back, right? So evening everyone. Danta, again, thank you for having me on the panel, and esteemed guests. Wow, I am so honored. My name is Rahim Mukepara, MBE, and I'm dyslexic, dyspraxic, have Erlen syndrome. And these shades I'm wearing aren't because I'm trying to look cool, it's because I have light sensitivity issues as well. And
Mm.
I have all of that right at the beginning because, on top of that, my successes are that, yes, I received an MBE for my work in the community in North London in England. I'm a part of Mensa. I have a master's. I have a law degree, all of that. And, I have to say that because no, thank you, honor. And I have to say that because for my journey, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and all the beautiful aspects about that has so been intertwined with my identity. And it's interesting. I was listening to me really talk about, the understanding of I was dyspraxic before, being black, and it was really interesting because I don't know anything first except I must overcome based on my identity, and that was something that was pushed in the African Caribbean household, whereby, like Tommy said, yeah, we know that we have to work 3 times, 5 times, 10 times of hard. And it was really interesting because I think, like what Elizabeth said, I was kind of diagnosed really late. So I really was diagnosed right up, I passed my secondary school, um actually did okay in the kind of O level stage, but I failed my A levels. And that was so surprising for everyone because, I was in the top stream for everything. And what people didn't realize is that for me to be in the top stream, it meant that I had to rewrite my notes about 5 times because I couldn't even understand my own handwriting. It meant that I had to reread the book over and over again because I had comprehension issues. It meant that sometimes I wasn't actually playing out as much as I could because I had to hit the books. And even when I played out, due to my dyspraxia, I was rubbish at nearly every game anyway. So football, yeah, no one really wanted to pick me. Any other game, no one really wanted to pick me. But I didn't realize it was because I had dyspraxia. It was really just because people just thought I was rubbish at sports. And when it got to my A levels, that's when I think the notion of me being a failure really had an emotional toll because I failed my A levels, and then there was no kind of guidance or route and support because in my household, the whole notion of being dyslexic and dyspraxic was quite negative. And that's quite understandable given the history of African and Caribbeans, particularly in the UK from the 1960s. There was a report in 1967 whereby African and Caribbean children were actually being placed in so-called educational subnormal categories and put into what we call special educational schools. And oftentimes what happened, there was a history whereby many of our forebears had come over with our parents and grandparents, and due to the lack of cultural competence by many of the teachers, not understanding that, if we are speaking and we have an elder there, we might not necessarily look directly in their eyes. We might, avert our attention. It was described that we were educationally subnormal. And so what happened, many of our children were placed in such schools, and there was a rating of 4 times more likely than any other group in the UK being placed in such schools, which hindered our progress. So many of our parents, I think, in the UK thought, okay, dyslexic, dyspraxia, that's almost like a disease. That's so negative, and I don't want your chances to be inhibited. And I think, and I go back to the beginning. That's I think why identity has always been really intertwined, and we talk about the intersectionalities of the various different conditions. There's also just the intersectionalities of our own livelihoods, and the understanding of where we came from and various kind of misunderstandings and battles, allows me to kind of understand some of the misconceptions our elders had. Fast forward and saying all that because we will get into that later, but I only got diagnosed or assessed, sorry, because not and assessed, thank you, I'm going to edit that, when I was actually doing my master's, and it was due to my my girlfriend at the time, now wife, looking at how I had my apartment, where everything was so organized, right? Everything was like in one corner. No, it wasn't organized, it was all like really untidy. Just the way I operated, like when I used to lose things, I would just almost lose my mind. Just the fact that I could hardly write. Even now, I can't write circles. I didn't start writing until I was 6, 7, and every summer holiday, I had to practice writing, right? And yeah, that's when I got diagnosed and got the assistance. And for me, it was such a freeing moment because I understood that, okay, now I understand why I'm having certain challenges. Now I can get assistance. But to be honest, even when I tried to have the conversation at home, it wasn't a positive one. And I say that in love because I understand the viewpoint of where my mother came from, because her comment was more, why would I want to claim something that's going to inhibit me in life? And for me, it was such a freeing moment. And we still have a disagreement on that, but that's okay. You know, in families, you have that. But I will say, you know, for all of us, it's the beauty, and I love the title of this presentation, you know, the gift of dyslexia, because we are geniuses in so many different ways. And I'm so positive about being dyslexia that, you know, I know that Dentaa and Elizabeth know, and Tumi know. So, you know, thank you for having me on the show today.
No, thank you. Honestly, like I said, I got diagnosed when I was at uni, and it was I was doing maths examination for my nursing, and I had failed it about 4 or 5 times, and they were like, "Look, this is your last time." And then one of the teachers was like, "Look, do you have this? Because you're just swapping the like you're just, you know, it's like you can do it, but you're just swapping the numbers around." And I was like, I really didn't know what it was, and I just feel like we need to be educating people. And I'm so happy that, you know, Elizabeth is carrying this amazing foundation that she's doing, because, and all of you as well, what you're doing in the community, because we just don't understand it. Like and once they did do the test, it was like, that's why, like you said, you're like, so that's why I put one earring there and I can't find where I put it. That's why, like, I just, you know, can't seem to formulate a sentence when I'm writing. That is what you're relieved. And like you said, I know, like, you know, our family members are like, you know, you shouldn't accept these things, you know, it's not in our family or whatever. But actually, it's a relief for us. Like, it's a relief, because now you know that actually you're not going mad, or it's not because you're stupid, but it's because, you know, because I remember, honestly, growing up as a child, my dad kept on saying, are you silly? Are you stupid? Like, can you not read this? You know, and you know, and for me, I was like, maybe I am, you know, maybe, I don't know, Daddy, maybe I am. But now it's really a time that we share these stories to encourage those young people that are coming up, to say, look, you're not stupid, actually. You've actually done better than any other people that are in the same situation as you. And you can get help. And she gave me this amazing computer that read everything for me. So when I put in, and so then I would hear it out as it was being written out. And guess what? Once I did get the help, I got the maths test 10 out of 10.
That's it.
I got 10 out of 10.
Yes.
You know, and it was then, so what they did actually was that because they knew that I was dyslexic, I had more time to go over the questions and just rethink and just go over it and over it again to make sure that I was putting the right answers. And so, you know, once you do get help, it will allow you to have some of these free access, you know, free time, more time for your exams, you know, and when you're doing your dissertation, you know, more time to hand it in. So it actually becomes very beneficial to you once you do know. And so, you know, I think these are some of the things. Did you want to add something to me?
Yeah, it does become beneficial providing what country you're in, right? So, for example, you have the extra time if you're in the UK, but this is why we need to raise the awareness, because what happens if I'm diagnosed as dyslexic, but I live in Ghana or Senegal or Nigeria? Do I get extra time there? Do you understand? And this is why it's so important that we're having this show and we're raising awareness, because people need to know about it. Also, another thing that we need to talk about is, I'm not a parent yet, but parents need to be more careful of the words that they use for their children. Don't tell your child you're stupid or you can't. You know, one of the things that my parents always did, my parents made me believe that there was nothing too difficult for me. They made me believe that, you know what, you serve a God that can do the miraculous. And as you trust in him, you can do it. Do you understand? And that did wonders for my mindset. So we really, really need to think about that when we're bringing up our children and bringing up people in the community as well.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Raheem, do you want to add anything to that before I ask on?
Yeah, just really quickly, I just think that it's interesting in terms of just the concept of extra time. You know, I think that sometimes because it's a hidden, you know, developmental issue and, you know, disability, people think that, okay, we're trying almost to game a system by asking for extra time. And it's not extra time, it's equitable time, right? So for if we now give an analogy of, okay, well, if you see somebody who, you know, might have a walking difficulty, you'd never take away their crutches or their wheelchair from them and say, okay, well, you need to get up the stairs, because you realize that those tools are needed to assist them in, you know, what should be an easy effort or a usual effort. The same thing when it comes to the technology that we, you know, ask for, the extra time, the so-called extra time for our planning. And it's getting around the notion of, well, for us, it's not extra. It's to ensure that we are able to perform as equally based upon all of our gifts. So, you know, that's what I want to add.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely. And somebody just mentioned, Margaret says, you know, anytime I hear dyslexia, I feel sad because in Ghana, the kids are yelled into it, you know, and she's absolutely right. You know, in Ghana and in Africa, I'm sure a lot of people, like I see a lot of people and I'm like, they're dyslexic.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we can tell. And obviously our school system is in such a way that, you know, like Elizabeth was saying, she was getting caned because she was getting it wrong, you know. And that needs to change. And I really want you, Elizabeth, to be able to come to Ghana, you know, to have these conversations here as well in the schools and the head teachers and all of these people where we will join you and share our experiences, because I feel like Tumi said, it depends where you are in the world where, you know, you're getting the help. Because in Africa, you probably, they ain't giving you a laptop, a free laptop.
Laptop for what?
Yeah, you know. And so you're absolutely right. I think we need to be having these conversations. Somebody says, Eben Ofori says, unfortunately, in the African community, issue are covered instead of researching and seeking support. Yeah, the issue is covered up. Yeah, it's hidden under the table. Oh, I've lost Elizabeth. I'm sure she'll come back. It's under the table, and yeah, we're just not talking about it. Okay, so would you say, Raheem, that would you classify dyslexia as a disease or just a trait, or a peculiar certain problem?
Whoops.
Yeah. So
not too sure what happened there.
Welcome back. No,
we are.
So Dentaa. So that to answer your question, you know, with respect, I wouldn't choose any of them. Okay. I think that with being, you know, on the spectrum of you know, special educational needs or having dyslexia, dyspraxia or otherwise, it's not a disease or a peculiarity. It is literally my mind is structured in a particular way so that it functions and I have certain outputs and I react differently when I get certain inputs. So the same way where I might have a difficulty of maybe writing, but I have the gift of being able to see patterns in data easily. I might have a difficulty maybe in terms of, you know, walking and playing a game and learning that quickly. But at the same time, I might be able to articulate myself better and engage better verbally other than someone, or my short-term memory might be just on fire. And so in terms of me speaking in crowds, that's my natural gift. And I think we have to kind of move away from thinking that the educational system that many of us have received is the only way for us to think, the only way for us to teach, and that's the only kind of basis that we judge intelligence or education. And I always like to quote a reference in terms of particularly our children now. So we've got 21st century children often taught by 20th century teachers based on a 19th century education system using 18th century, in the most part, rules and methods. And we're in economies now whereby what the advantage that I think our parents and are wanting to have is to ensure that we have a livelihood. Okay, well, the gifts that we have in terms of seeing patterns, leadership skills, talking, musical awareness, creativity, spatial awareness, all of that is what comes with being a dyslexic, dyspraxic, having Elmer's syndrome, and all the various gifts. So what I think the difficulty is, and this is not just faced by Ghana, I think this is a challenge, across the whole world, moving away from an industrial revolution or colonial based educational system and actually trying to embrace really what education should be about, which we know education comes from the Latin word educare, which means to bring forth. Well, then give me a system whereby it brings forth the gifts of that individual. And I mentioned before sometimes where I say, look, many of us, I'll say particularly in the UK, when we're going through our compulsory education, from time when you're young to time when you leave at 16, you've gone through 12,870 hours of education. And if a teacher cannot bring out your essence, your gifts after that time, then it's not the child that's failed.
Mm-hmm. I think if I can just add on to that, I think we lost the reception or whatever a bit, the kind of internet. We lost it for a little bit, so I wasn't too sure the question that Dentaa might have asked. But I think for me, having set up HY Dyslexia, which obviously stands for Aspire to Inspire Dyslexia, where we've actually had a lot of people with dyslexia come to us, is more the repercussion of what they've gone through from childhood to where they are now. So the mental well-being is so important. It can really affect, dyslexia can affect someone so much that there's 3 ways one can go. Now, you could end up on benefits forever because you're not employable. You could end up in mental institution because you just lose everything, from depression, anxiety, all sorts of things that you might go through. Or you could actually end up in a criminal justice system.
Yep.
So it's really important that it's addressed from a very young age. Now, dyslexia and all the specific learning is a condition that's genetic. So I've got dyslexia. My middle daughter's got dyspraxia. My son's got ADHD. Now, whether the little one, the 10-year-old's got dyslexia or not, I don't know as yet, but it's something I'm looking into. So it's really important that parents that are listening or watching this live show now, if you think you are dyslexic, please don't let your child suffer or go through all the things that can hinder one to achieve. So the mental well-being is so important. And of course, dyslexia affects everybody. It's a different spectrum, isn't it? Mine's very severe. I can say that because honestly, it just is. Dentaa, since trying to get this show, like, where is it? Can't find it. Where is it? I'm all over the place trying to find information. So it is so severe that if somebody ought to compare someone who's dyslexic, who's an author, to someone like me who can't string a couple of sentences together, you can't even compare. It's a bit like autism. You've got autistic children that are non-verbal, and you've got autistic people that can, who are verbal. So it can't really be measured the same way. And for that reason, I just plead with the Black community, especially parents from Black community. Please don't say, look, it's a myth. It doesn't exist. Only white people get dyslexia. No, Black people too get dyslexia. The thing is, there's not enough representation out there of us Black people to showcase the amazing creativity skills we have, and also having this condition. And that's one of the things that HY Dyslexia is trying to bring forward. Say, look at people like Raheem, who has got an MBE, who's got masters, who's got that and doing really well for himself. Right. Look at Dentaa, who's really prominent in our community, who's really done so well for herself. She has this condition, and this is where she is now. You look at Tumi, who's doing amazing work, who wants to further his education in PhD to do research about neurodiverse and all that. And it can, honestly, one can really achieve. But I think we've got to come away from that mindset as it's shameful, as we're embarrassed, and it doesn't exist, and we must go to church and pray it out. Do you know what? If you find a Bible version that you can quote to me to get rid of my dyslexia, I'll be happy to know. You don't cure it. Dyslexia don't go away. It stays with us.
To me,
I'm not sure if you just to add, and I agree with what everyone says, that it's not, because I come from like a medical background, I understand the need for people to call things like dyslexia or dyspraxia like a disease, because the way the medical curriculum is set up, anything that is classified as not normal, you look at it's a disease or there's something wrong. But I think for us to have a real good discussion about what's going on here, I think it's really important that we actually talk about the term neurodiversity. And neurodiversity was a term that was coined in the late 1990s by a sociologist based in Australia. I think her name is Judy Singer. And basically it was a sociologist that coined the term. And basically she was explaining that neurodiversity is a subset of biodiversity, explaining that there's no two people on this planet that have the same brain. We're all different, we're all unique. And basically she was just using that term to say, there are some people that are just different. There's variation. And she was saying that, if we want to actually understand, because she was autistic herself. She has a grandmother she has a mom that's autistic. She has a daughter that was autistic, and she was basically using it to say that we need to use neurodiversity to redefine the way society looks at disability. I often say this, that dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, there are some great people in this world, like your Steve Jobs, your Bill Gates, your Richard Bransons, your Einsteins, even Greta Thunberg. All of them have autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, but they've added so many great things to the world. And this is why people in the neurodiverse community actually say, dyslexia, dyspraxia are actually superpowers. And this is why it's different. You can't classify it the same way as like kidney disease or not being able to walk or other diseases, because there's actually profound benefits, significant benefits. And what Judy Singer was trying to say is, people that have this variation in brains, they actually add and contribute a lot to cultures and society. And what society needs to do is say, okay, how can we enhance these people? And this is why I often say to people that I'm still kind of, it doesn't make sense why there's stigma. A majority of entrepreneurs in America have dyslexia. There's a lot of very wealthy people that have dyslexia, autism. There's a book called Neurotribes, and they found that in Silicon Valley there was a higher proportion of autistic people, because there's a different way of thinking that contributes a lot to businesses, and this is why there's some actually organizations in the UK that actually go out of their way to find these types of people. And let me give you an example. Say if there was an app that was developed for Android, you would be silly to try and get this app created for Android to work on iOS. Why? Because the operating system is different. And that's the same thing with our brains. Like, the brains are just wired differently. So actually, and this is what Raheem was talking about, the educational system. Unfortunately, the educational system has just been made for iOS. But actually, what we are saying now and what the world is saying, remember, neurodiversity was only discovered in the late 90s. So the term is only like 21 years old. What we're just discovering is that, hold on a minute, there's a variation, there's different types of brains out there. And the reason why we're here today is to say, you know what, let's not just the white man discover this and run for it. As Black people, we need to embrace this too. And I'll just stress this point again. Think about the amount of jobs that just Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Richard Branson have created for their communities alone. What would the continent of Africa look like if we discovered young dyslexics and young dyspraxics in Ghana, in Senegal, in Nigeria, in South Africa, and gave them the opportunities that they needed? What would the Black community look like in the UK? You know, and this is what we need to start thinking about. You know, we can actually achieve Wakanda if we embrace neurodiversity, but we need, that's a joke by the way, because obviously Wakanda doesn't exist, but we can achieve so much, but we need to go beyond the hurdle of this is a stigma. Oh, my child, let me pray away this dyspraxia to actually thank God for this diversity, thank God for this difference. What can I do to make sure that my child fulfills their great potential? For example, I'm dyslexic. I have so many different ideas every single day, entrepreneurial ideas, so many ideas. I wish I had 3 other versions of myself to actually fulfill all the ideas that I have, you know. And this is the thing. But with the right support, you know, till the age of, because there's some people that are looking for ideas, and they know how to implement, and they're very organized, very articulate, and they're looking for ideas. Now,
they ain't got the ideas. They ain't got the ideas.
So what would the society look like if we work together? That, hold on, I'm an ideas man, you're an implementer. Let's work together to achieve. And this is what I do with I'll stop now.
I just wanted to quickly add something here. I think it's really great. I mean, what Tony was saying, I 100% agree with what you're saying and everything. I think it starts from the awareness, because if I don't know what the condition is, I don't know how to go for that help. Now, I think somebody's dropped a message there. So how do I help my daughter who doesn't like to read or do maths, but she's very visual? The only advice I could probably give this gentleman, channel your daughter in what she's good at. Now, what we tend to do within the Black community is look at 4 top jobs, which is your solicitor, your doctor, your lawyer, and your prime minister, whatever the word might be. We don't look at the creativity of what the individual can bring. So your daughter could be a fashion designer. Your daughter could be the top hairdresser. I mean, look at how much Tony and Guy earns. Look how much money Vivian Westwood must earn. You know, Vivian Westwood's got dyslexia. So many of these creative people have got dyslexia. Now, they've made it within the industry or with their skills and talent they've got. If you're a public speaker, listen, thrive on that. Do it the best ability you can. The one problem or one issue I think some of us Black community have is that we think creativity, a footballer, I don't know, a cake decorator, a landscaper, someone who's creative, we don't see that as a skill. We see that as, why don't you go and do the other? I mean, I would probably say footballers probably earn more than a doctor would have earned, but we don't see that as something that we want to push our children into. And we always want them to do academically, we want them to achieve. And that's where the problem comes in. I was told I was going to be a doctor. You couldn't get me to spell the word doctor before even moving on, because doctor, I hear some K's and T's in there. Just what I mean in my spelling. There's no way I was going to achieve that. Why don't you help me to excel in what I'm good at? And I think that's the message I'd love to get to parents. If your child is creative in no matter what they're doing, don't knock it. Let them do really good and encourage them to do what they're good at. We've got musicians, we've got singers, we've got dancers. What's wrong with being that? We're not all going to be doctors and lawyers and solicitors, but I think it's been drummed into us that that's the only profession that is kind of, in vertical commas, makes us proud, but it shouldn't be. So back to the gentleman's question, you've got to find out what your daughter's good at and just channel her to make her successful. You can, for me, for example, you could keep hammering on with maths. No maths will go in his head.
Yeah. Can I just jump in really quickly?
Just have to have
and then to me.
Yeah, really quickly, only because I think oftentimes, and I'm so really just like happy being on the show. So much of this is really about changing the narrative, right? And even sometimes in a lot of our subjects that gets fed to us, sometimes it could just be so dry. Like they like, especially even when it comes to like the basics, as the person was saying. Um, Depending on the tutor and how they deliver a subject, could turn, I know, particularly me, right off. Now, generally speaking, if I sometimes don't see a practical use of a subject, I'm really not interested. So maths for me was always about, okay, if you're talking about fractions, it's about cutting cake. If you're talking about, measurements and geometry, okay, well, I'm gonna measure a room and I'm going to, okay, see how whether or not I could get furniture in. And sometimes it's the way how we place certain subjects in sometimes maybe a real world fashion that also can help. But 100%, what Elizabeth is saying in terms of what we actually look at in terms of, okay, useful careers and I think productive careers, and it ties into the point Tumi was mentioning before. All the growing industries, I'll say particularly in London, but I'll say yes, all over the world, are looking at things like your engineering, creativity, able to be a leader, not just a manager, being able to implement visions. All of these things, I mean, maybe not necessarily in one individual, but all of these things are the kind of special hallmarks of people who we'd identify as dyslexic, dyspraxic, autistic, or being on the spectrum. And so it's that thing sometimes I think our parents and others, even ourselves, can go off on the information that we believe is known. We know that a doctor makes money. Well, actually, in the UK, a doctor doesn't really make any money in their first year. It's 7 years of, hard toil. And in the first year, if you look at the hours they're working, they're getting less than minimum wage. That's the reality of the situation. Lawyers, okay, they talk about how much you make as a lawyer. Okay, well, in the UK, it depends. Again, so much money is being spent. What area of law are you going to practice? If you're practicing criminal law, you're maybe getting less than £25,000 a year, which again isn't a lot of money. So it's sometimes I think we have to have, I think as a community, sometimes that real conversation and really use what I'll call our social capital to get the real understanding of what are effective career strategies, for our populace, and how can we use the skills. Like I try not to write too much, and when I write, again, it's like artwork. If I want to write an art piece, then yeah, I'll write. But then what I'll do, I type, and I love books. But you know what I do? I listen to Audible. Right, so I'm listening to books. Or you know what? If I didn't have Audible, I'd even try and get somebody to read it to me. So again, one of the things that I suppose we are generally good at is finding solutions to problems because we've always had some kind of barrier or challenge to deal with. And this is again why, I mean, in my company, Prime Unlimited, we work with small businesses and social enterprises really as a social impact company because, my whole kind of meat and love is seeing societies thrive. And I find small business and social enterprises is the best for that. And so in my opinion, looking at business growth and sustainability, that's all my bag. But saying everything in one, like these are things that it's prime time for us, and that's why I'm also quite excited as well. There's no reason to have a negative conversation with a child if they do have the various conditions, because then it's really about seeking the knowledge and challenging them and really developing the things, their geniuses within them.
Absolutely.
I just want to address, because I saw the comment, the child is 8, and so for me, without making assumptions and stuff, I would stress the importance of having the assessment. You want to find out exactly what's going on, because when you know what's going on, whether it's dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, you can then develop specific strategies from that child. And I would always recommend talking to a professional, with the educational psychologist, occupational health, GP, and just talking to them and having those questions draw, but making sure you get that assessment done. Secondly, I think I really agree with the way Raheem said that we just have to think differently about how we can educate, because I'm a really, really big believer that yes, there are so many other options that people can do in life, and you don't have to do law or engineering or be a doctor. However, when it comes to a child that's 8, up until the age of 16, there are basic skills that, like for example, mathematics, reading and writing, basic skills that it's important that every child should have. And so the discussion is not, oh, if your child has a specific learning difficulty, they can't do it. We're saying with the right support, with the right patience, with help, with specific strategies, they can fulfill the potential. Look, there's so many. Look at the four of us. We've achieved, you know, we have degrees. Some of us have got masters, for example. So don't think that your child can't do it. They can't achieve academically. But what I will say is, it would be tough. It would be hard at 8, but don't give up. There are ways.
I think you're really right. To me, the first thing is the assessment. Now, what we get is, oh, we can't afford it. We get a lot of people say, I can't afford the assessment. And I normally say to parents, that holiday you're planning for next year, put it on hold. Get that assessment for your child, and the world is their oyster. Because
how much is the assessment in the UK?
In the UK, it's £420 community rate. That's because we're a CIC. But some organisations are charging up to £900. If you go for educational psychologist report, which looks at all the different conditions, it can go as far as £950. I don't know. Families might book a holiday for 5k. Why can't you afford a £420 assessment, for example, so that you know that once you've got that assessment, I mean, without my assessment, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I don't know where I'll be. I was failing. I am a total failure. I'm what you call, look, cross her off the books. She ain't going to be nothing. I mean, when I was at school, the teachers were saying, we know where she's heading. She's going to be one of those young teenagers who's going to have 6 or 7 children by 6 or 7 different men. She'll probably end up in prison. She'll probably end up with nothing. Now, I was a complete write-off until I got that help. You know, luckily for me, all those things that were said when I was young, I didn't go that route, but I could have possibly gone that route. But I had a very strict father who made sure, even though you're not writing, reading, and spelling and getting all these things right, I'm going to make sure something will come with you. So at one point, he just said, look, do what best you can, but just don't go the wrong route. And that's the only encouragement that he kept giving me. I mean, okay, he didn't understand dyslexia. So sometimes it was like, what's wrong with this one? You know, and there were times him and my mum would be talking, and my mum said, well, I don't know. And you say he doesn't know. So I'm like the black sheep of the family. But you know something, when God's got plans for you, no one, but no one can destroy that, you know? And God's plans is just so phenomenal and so amazing that I am a living testimony of how one can turn their life around. You know, when you feel there's no hope. At some point in my life, I just felt like, look, you can't go any lower than this. I could have easily given up and walked away. But God said, look, go through the education route, luckily for me. And that's where dyslexia was picked up. And from there, I've never looked back. I'm not going to sit here and say uni was plain sailing. Do you know what? I can't even use the word on Prime TV or Prime Live show right now. It was absolutely nightmare. You know, I went to uni a size 14 or so. I left uni a size 6. That's how depressed and how low I was. But that's one thing I wasn't going to give up. Or a size 8, a 6 to 8. That's everybody goes, oh my gosh, you lost so much weight. It's the stress and trying to understand what I need to read, what I need to write. That's one thing I wasn't going to walk away from. I've always been a quitter. It's like, oh, it's not working, and I'll move on. Well, this time I was going to stick it out, and I was going to finish it. And God's plan is so different. I just want to say to anyone watching, whether it's adult, whether it's a child, whether it's a teenager, listen, no matter what condition you might have, there is hope. And I think we're all a living example of that. So, you know, just don't give up, but find the right support, like Tumi said. You know, find the right people you can connect with. I've had friends in the past that will say, do you really want to talk about your dyslexia? It's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? I've lost friends because of my condition. Some people just don't get it, you know? And just to also add that dyslexia is not just reading, writing, and spelling. It's processing information for me. It's understanding what that person is saying to me. So you can imagine in a relationship, if you're married or if you've got, you know, you and your partner, you're saying one thing, they're saying another. Unless you find someone very, very understanding who gets it. I'm constantly going to my partner to say, oh, can you just explain what does this mean? And I'm so blessed to have someone who understands this condition.
Hallelujah.
Absolutely, because it's not just about reading, writing, and spelling.
Yeah.
It's about the disorganization.
Yeah.
It's about the wrong turning to go to that party. You're 21 hours late. You know, it's about it's about the words. It's about information. And not everybody thinks, oh, is it when you can't read and write? No, it's more than that. It's absolutely more than that. I just wanted to add that to the conversation. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. It's more, it's way more than just, typos and reading and writing. But you're absolutely right. It's understanding what that letter that has just come through the door. Literally, I'm like, I don't understand what they're saying. And I give it to my partner. I'm like, yeah, what are they saying? Like, I don't understand. And then he's just like, they're saying this. And I'm like, okay, that's what they're trying to say. It is that processing of information. You're absolutely right. And somebody's put out there, look, there's top jobs in the UK: carpenters, bricklayers, plumbers, roofers, general builders, landscapers, and so on. These people are making an average of 95k per year or even more. So it's not just about being a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it is. There are other professions now that you can encourage your children to go into, that they will be okay. Somebody says, I feel empowered. This is it. We all need to feel, and that's why I think having these conversations, and the people on my panel have set up this organizations, is to empower us. Is to encourage us that there are people in our situations that are flourishing. But like we said, you need to get that help. You need to get that test done for your child. That holiday that you're trying to spend, or that Gucci or that leather bag that you're trying to buy, put it on hold for your child, because it will be stressing your child out as well in school. You don't know what they're going through when they have to get up and read, or when they have to come up and write some. I remember, writing things on the board. I remember, and you're just so scared because, one, I can't even read my own handwriting, two, let alone for them to understand what I'm trying to put on there. And so please, 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 please get help for your children. It's so important. I noticed that my son Adansi had that, and I told his school. And because what I noticed, that he is fantastic at maths, but he can't explain how he got the answer. He can't write it out, but he knows the answer. But his one is just like, he just can't tell you, the way in which he got that. So there's different aspects of this that you need to try and piece together. And so, Tumi, I know that you want to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say just a few things. That number one, bricklaying and roof tiling is great things, but from a dyslexic side, dyslexics struggle with gross motor skills and fine motor skills. So when you're talking about those things like doing hair, things like carpentry and stuff, me trying to fix something fix a product from IKEA, that's an absolute myth. To be honest, just me personally, because I love books, I love studying and reading, actually studying to do medicine would be a lot easier for me than the carpentry. But that just goes to say that every child is different. We're all different. And another point that I wanted to make is Elizabeth and Dante, you talked about making that sacrifice for the assessment. I agree. It's important, because paying that £500, £900 for the assessment, especially in the UK, that's good. But unfortunately, there are people in the UK, on the continent, that just don't have that money to pay for that. And this is a wider issue of the economics behind the diagnosis. Why is it so expensive? Because unfortunately, it's the poorer people that don't have the socio-economic, and this is why intersectionality is important, because when we talk intersectionality, we're not just talking about race, we're talking about socio-economic statuses as well. Because what you will get is, no matter what the color of your skin is, you'll get middle class and upper, and people with higher disposable income getting the assessment for their children, giving their children support. But the poorer people in our society, both in the UK and on the continent, will miss out. So the question is, what do we do about that?
I just wanted to add something, actually. It's really important that we kind of differentiate all these different conditions. So I have dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and Erling syndrome. The one that really hinders me to move on is my dyslexia. The dyspraxia doesn't really hinder me as much. Now, in Tumi's case, it will be more the dyspraxia. So he probably wouldn't be doing the kind of jobs I would love to do, which is creativity. Now, then we've got Raheem, who's also got the same condition as me, but very good with maths, graphs and charts. Then you've got me on the other end, who just can't string 2 times 2 together. So it's all different levels. And this is why I always stress that it's really important that we find the strengths of what our children have and channel them into what they're good at. Because don't try and get me to do anything to do with mathematics. You won't get anywhere. You just wouldn't get. I don't understand spreadsheets. When you give me a spreadsheet, it's like little ants running across the page. So I wouldn't be your data input person. You know, it would just completely go pear-shaped with me. But what I can say is, give me something creative. I tend to use my voice as a gift that God's given me. And I use my gifts to the best of what I do in terms of my voice. So why would I be muted if I'm good at public speaking, if I'm good at, sharing information? Why don't I use that? Rather than trying to pin me behind a computer, trying to write that report that you need, you won't get anything out of me, which makes me feel like a failure because I'm not really using my strengths to the best of my ability. And going back to the fact that people can't afford the assessment, do you know what? For me, I don't really believe in the freeness. I believe in investing in yourself, because nobody will do an assessment for free. Schools do them, but they have to have the budget to be in the UK particularly. There's got to be a budget there for them to use it. If there isn't one, and you're a parent, you've got to, if you really want the best, you've just got to sacrifice certain things. I do get it. There was a point where I couldn't have afforded to pay for an assessment, but I've got to find a way if my child is failing. I'm very sure if my parents would have known what this condition was back in the 70s, they probably would have sold their house to make sure I could get the assessment I needed. But the awareness wasn't there. And I'm just so glad and so happy that, people like us can drive this forward and bring this change. It's not going to happen overnight because, we've got a long way to go, but it's baby steps. And by God's grace, we'll get there eventually. And I just want to always mention that, we've got our Steve Jobs and our Richard Branson and so forth. We also have our Will Smith. We have our Whoopi Goldberg. We have our, I cut the list as long. Raheem, help me out.
Muhammad Ali.
No, we've got Dentaa.
Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, it's important for us to identify people that, we can identify with. It's not just about, yes, it's nice to see the famous people, but it's nice to see the local champions who have also had in our community that we can say, oh my God, she's quite close to me. I understand, I can see it. So I think it's really important that we share these things, that we encourage ourselves. And you're right, you're so right. Let's see the good things that they are good at and just pump that. And just nurture that talent that they have. Let's nurture that. Dancy, like I said, he's just like, and boxing is his thing. So he's going boxing training. That's what he loves, and that's what we champion, because we know that schoolwork is not his strength, but there's other talents. God has given us so many talents. I keep saying this. And it's just about us nurturing and finding, identifying which talent it is, and then going for it. We've got a 40-year-old that's watching this for the first time, and now he's realized the problem that he has.
Well, he's actually said, first time I'm hearing of this sickness. But I can't blame him. I actually can't blame him. I don't know, but I can't blame them for calling it a sickness, for example, because there's no awareness out there. There is no awareness. And I think he or she, I don't know who it is, it doesn't say he or she, they actually say, now I know what the problem I have. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So if we don't spread the awareness, we're not going to get anywhere. And it's not just a white condition. It's in every culture. It's in every, you know, I've met Muslims with dyslexia. I've met people from Peru, from Thailand, from China. Oh, well, actually not China. Let me get that right. Someone did say to me, Chinese people don't really have the condition. And the reason why that is because it's not alphabetically written. They're written in symbols. So I don't know the truth in that. I'm not the expert in that. We've got about 85% of Black people with dyslexia in our books, or that comes to us at HY Dyslexia. We've got about 2% Asian. We don't have no other, apart from, you know, the odd. We haven't had a couple of people from Peru, Colombia, or, you know, and it's like, what is this? The first thing will be, I don't know what help I need. I don't even understand why I can't read and write. I can't understand why I'm always getting lost. I don't understand why my friend just said something. I don't understand it. The teacher just taught me. I've walked out of the class, I've forgotten everything. So people are like, what can I do? And I'm like, you know what, the first thing you need, and I never really would say, go for assessment straight away. You need to research what dyslexia is. Because the assessment doesn't necessarily come back as, yes, you have dyslexia. It may not be dyslexia. It could be another condition. So you need to find out what the condition is. I mean, internet is readily available to us. You know, you could just Google, what is dyslexia? Do I tick all these 20 boxes? And if I do I now want to go for a test, a screening, or an assessment? The awareness is key. That's the first point before anything else. Yeah.
So key. And I remember, just before you go to me and you carry on, I remember my sense of direction. So I could go somewhere, like my husband, we a certain house or whatever, a friend's house, go there so many times. Each time I have to ask for direction. I literally cannot remember how to get there. And it's very simple. When my husband's gone, I'm like, oh, that's how you do it. And these are all part of, you know, the processing that we talk about of things in our mind. And it's for us to learn about it as well, to then understand people, so that we don't, you know, say bad things about them because we don't understand what they're going through. You know,
exactly.
No, absolutely. So to me, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I agree with it a lot with what everyone's saying. For me, I'm already aware of certain organizations on the continent that are in this space. For example, One World Africa. There's a dyslexic clinic that I'm working with someone based in northern Nigeria called Amani Dyslexic Center. I know a few organizations in Ghana, for example. I know that there's a certain organization in Kenya. And one thing I would love to do, maybe in this decade, to kind of have, you know, a conference to get all these people together to say, okay, cool, what can we do for people on the continent? We need to let organizations like the UN know, and, you know, the World Health Organization, and really raise awareness and put pressure on these people. Look, the reason why climate change is such an issue and governments are waking up is because of someone who was neurodivergent. You know, Greta Thunberg, she's got autism and ADHD traits, for example. And this is why the world is waking up. There is power in neurominorities, and it's time for our governments, our leaders, to understand that and to utilize it, to tap into it, not just for the benefit of these individuals, but for the benefit of our communities and our nations in general. So the time is now.
I strongly agree with you. I think it's really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So possibly in education, we say people learn best through pictures. To be honest with you, we all learn differently. We all learn. I've met many dyslexics in my journey. Now, I've met one particular dyslexic who is so phenomenal, amazing with the economics, with the maths. He can't spell his name. Now, it's like, okay, I know where you're coming from. He's not good with literacy, but he's good with maths. Now, does he learn in pictures? I don't know. I couldn't say that. I'm a visual person. Like Dentaa said, Wherever I go, I'm looking at a church building. I'm looking at the structure of the church building. I'm looking at that painted house. I'm looking at that tree that looks different. So when that tree's cut down, I'm lost. When that building is painted a different color, I'm lost. I'm a visual person. Not everybody learns that way. So do people learn in pictures? I can't answer that. I'm not a dyslexia assessor, rather. I run an organization and I have a lived experience. However, we have people who are sort of done their master's degrees and whatever in dyslexia and specific learning. And those will be the people that can answer this question for you. But I'm not one to say that do we best learn in pictures. I don't know. I know I do, but I can't speak for others.
Yeah.
Can I say something? Probably not necessarily from an assessment perspective, but I suppose more from like a business marketing and maybe educational perspective. You know, when you think of YouTube at the moment, YouTube, you know, was previously marketed as like a video channel, so to speak, right? And then you look at it, it's like, okay, well, no, actually YouTube's your own TV station if you really use it and not be a consumer. Okay, but now what our most recent evidence has shown is actually when people are trying to learn something, the first place they often go to isn't Google, it's actually YouTube. And so when you're looking at the growth of things like Instagram, for example, as a marketing tool, Instagram has kind of recently really focused on what's called Instagram Reels, which is more of like your video content. So, I mean, there is something to be said about how people absorb information, human interaction, faces, because we look at the, you know, body language and communication. They say more than 70% of communication is actually through not actually the words and the literal meaning of the words, but it's the tone and the way you say it, or whether you're smiling or not, or your body language. So I think there's something to be said about pictures and communications. Now, to give a definitive answer, I agree 100% with Elizabeth. You know, you wouldn't be able to say that, but I think on the whole, I think in a lot of communication strategies, video and pictures are something that generally is being used, and that's understandable because throughout human history we've been a symbolic people. From, let's say, the Medunetta on, you know, the I want to say pyramids, to even Adinkra symbols. So, you know, everything, you know, has a symbol associated to it, which we imbued our information and emotions into it.
And just to go back to when we first started the show, and I was talking about obviously growing up in Ghana and being in school in Ghana. Now, Dentaa will probably agree with me on this. When I was in primary school, if you got the word wrong or the end of the academic year, everybody will be in a line in an assembly. Now, the teachers will be saying who's passed their exams and who have failed. And I would have been one of the ones that would have failed. So sometimes, and that's when I was growing up, you get booed for being what they used to say, thick, stupid, and dunce is the word that was used for me. And that had a significant impact in me growing up. And it's something that I just hope that is still not going on in Africa. As in, if you're the last in a class, people will laugh at you, they'll boo you, they'll call you stupid, and all sorts of things. I just hope that we can move away from that and really channel people into the best way they learn so they can unlock their full potential. That saying of, you know, being thick, stupid, and dunce, it has never really left me. So no matter what I do now, I make sure that I do it to the best of my ability, because I don't want to fail. I could not be a failure anymore. And this is growing up back in Ghana, because if you get it wrong, you will be booed, unless I'm wrong, Dentaa. You know, correct me. I don't know whether they stopped doing that now, but and it can have a real impact on one. And this is when the anxiety, the depression, the low self-esteem, and all that comes into it. And it's really important that we recognize that we are all different and we do things differently. For that reason, let's just celebrate our successes and stop knocking on the weakness and try to make that better. Because like I said earlier on, the maths, I can't get past it. I don't know how many people are watching thinking, God, I really agree with you. And no matter how much you drum it into me, it's like, oh yeah, I get that. I walk out of the room and think, what was all that about? And I just don't get it. And I don't know when I will, you know? So I just wanted to kind of share that with the viewers. And hopefully this change is coming.
Yeah, no, change is coming. Rahim, do you think that our current school system in the UK supports people with dyslexia or dyspraxia?
I think they do. I no, so there's there are two ways to answer, and I'm thinking about time. I do think they do. They oftentimes you do have like Senkos or your special education needs coordinators. There usually is somebody to go to. Now, my question is whether or not sometimes the support is effective enough. Maybe I don't know if that's the right way to say that. I think sometimes there could be more focus on terms of ensuring what's called your educational healthcare plan, or the things that are put in place to assist a person are up to date or are current or are really actively applied to that person. I think there's a conversation to be had, and thinks this definitely touches on the points of what Elizabeth, and Tumi were saying, in terms of how much do we engage with parents to ensure that they have the right information and are accessing the right information to ensure that their children are getting the best all-round support. So I think yes, but I'm always going to say that more work needs to be done. And it's really about, again, parents having an active interest and really being actively involved in the school to say, well, I've noticed something. I would like the school to really be proactively supporting me in this. And I think the importance of this is, again, it can't really be, there can't be an understatement on it. Even for myself now, as I stated, that I was diagnosed and assessed quite late, and the repercussions of that, whilst I will say yes, I was imbued with a lot of positive self-esteem, I was really dealing with issues of social anxiety, chronic depression for years, to the point where that had culminated in a period whereby I had to take, an extended period off work to actually deal with some of those issues of, kind of like self-doubt, really poor self-esteem, and what that actually meant in terms of my personal identity. Now, a lot of that pain and that scarification could have been avoided if there was some proactive support in terms of engagement, I suppose, with my parents at the time. So it's not just about, I know parents sometimes still have this fear about stigmatization. I will just say from personal experience, dealing with the fallout of having, let's say, poor mental health is much more painful to see, I think, if you're a parent, than to deal with any kind of feelings of initial stigmatization. Just adding on, lastly, closing on the point, the other reason why it's so important is that having those initial assessments can carry you through the rest of your life, whether you're going to university, going to college, or whether in your employ. Not having that means that you're always going to be trying to find out, and this is where you have all the indices of which they still really don't know, at least in the UK, in terms of how many people who are on the spectrum special needs spectrum, and deemed dyslexic, they are in prison. There's one assessment where they say they're 30%, but in terms of looking at numeracy and other needs, it could be as high as 60%. So this conversation is really important, not only to really talk about the gifts of dyslexia, but the importance that we really, I think the first point of call is really ensuring that our children have the best support, self-esteem, and structured support so that they could be the successes that we already know they are.
Absolutely. I'm just going to go over to some of the comments. Ade says, thank you. I faced the same problem in school when I was growing up in Nigeria. Since moving to the US, it's getting better. Now I have my MBA. Come on.
Well done. Amazing. Amazing.
Excellent. That's awesome. Really awesome.
Let's see, but how can school make provision for different styles, especially in Ghana and other places where we have 30 plus students in a class?
Right. So how can school make provision for different styles, especially in Ghana? Do you know something? I don't have the answer for that, to be honest. I'm going to be very, very honest with you. I don't know how the education system works in Ghana in terms of dyslexia, special educational needs, but I do know that I have friends who've got children with special education, and they may have to pay privately to get them assessed. That I do know. But in terms of the UK, I know that I can walk into my daughter's school office and say, look, I'm a bit worried about my daughter. I think she might have this condition. How best can you help? A conversation will be available for me to have with a head or with a Senko. In terms of Ghana, I really don't have the answer for that. The only thing I can say is, I don't know, Dentaa, you might be, better sort of
I think,
in terms of the education in Ghana than I am.
Yeah, well, I haven't schooled in Ghana, unfortunately, but what I can say is that you have to take your child's education into your own hands. So that is getting a private tutor, getting a private assessment. You have to do things that the school are not going to be able to do for you because they don't understand dyslexia yet. They don't get it. And so if you get it, and if you are reading about it, and if you're hearing this, get your child assessed. Try and see, like Tumi said, I didn't even know there's organizations setting up in Nigeria and other African countries that are setting up now. Try and Google is now the best thing in the world because you can search for anything. And also, even when you put dyslexia, you do hashtags on social media, you will find people that have dyslexia, that are specialists. I mean, online now is like where you can find out so many information.
Absolutely. I think there's a young girl called Rosalind. There's a young girl called Rosalind Che, I think, and she's got a company called Global Africa Dyslexia, something of that kind of. I'm not too sure exactly the name of it, and I think she's doing something in Ghana. But Dentaa, it's all about money, isn't it? It's all about how she can move forward with her organization. And I think she is doing something locally. I think she's based in Accra somewhere. If I do find it, I can send it to you. And obviously, you could put it on the Facebook link. And she's doing something in Ghana, but I don't think it can be free because the assessors won't give it free. So it's about investment. Now, I normally say, in whatever you invest yourself in, you can get something good come out of it. We've got to pay for the services to be able to get something out of what we're doing. There's no point sitting there, including the UK, including like whoever's watching globally. There's no point sitting there saying, look, the onus is on the school. This is your child. And how important is it for you to get the right support for them? If your child needed, for example, the most expensive trainers, you might go out there and get it. I don't know whether that's a need or that's a want, but some parents will go to every level to make sure they're wearing the latest gear. Invest in the education for your child. And that's the best way I can put it. And like Dentaa said, all you got to do, if you Google, rather, let me put my tongue in, dyslexia in Ghana, I'm sure something will come up. And I'm sure they can be contactable. And I know that even in the UK, we've got parents coming to us saying, look, I think my child's got dyslexia. How soon can I book an appointment to get them assessed? And they'll pay. And we've got a long way to this as I speak to you now. Because especially with all the COVID and the lockdown, I think a lot of parents have realized, oh, hang on a minute, Imogen or Stacey or Margaret is not learning as much as I thought they are. Because we have to now teach them. And everything's coming out now. So, you got to really invest in your child and invest in yourself. If you feel you've got dyslexia at the age of 40, 50, 60, whatever the age may be, try and get that diagnosis done, get the assessment you need and get the support you need. And like Raheem rightly said, you can use your assessment for education, for the workplace, and in general, you'll find out about yourself. I was shocked when I read my report. I said, gosh, is that really me? Is that me? I really can't read and I really can't spell, But it's real, and what can I do? And just to add on to that, I mean, 10% of the population in the UK are severely dyslexic. And it is
Dyslexia Ghana, somebody just put it up. So there is Dyslexia Ghana.
So there is something in Ghana, and dyslexia identifies a disability, and according to the Equality Act 2010. So if you're in a workplace, if you're an adult, you're in a workplace, you've got dyslexia, and you're not getting the help you need. Speak to your HR department, and speak to them and tell them that, look, I may have this condition. I don't think there's one employer out there that would tell and say, what do you want me to do about it? Because it is classed as, a disability, and you can get the help you need, within the workplace. And I know that it can be challenging You know, it is stigmatized. People may look at you differently. I've been in an office with my screen being blue. Everybody else has got a clear white screen. Mine is blue.
Yeah.
I've got gadgets everywhere. You know, I'm sort of asking, how do you spell this? How do you spell this? And everyone in the office is like, I stick out like a sore thumb. But what can I say? I think Janice put important to check the qualification of specialists before you pay. And that's also very important. You've got to check that, yes, they are qualified. Yeah, you can find the qualifications of dyslexic assessors on PATOS, which is a body that all these assessors belong to. You can also Google and find out where they went to study. You know, look for the alphabets behind their names. Don't just pay for the sake of paying for it, because there are some real assessors out there, and there are some people that will just say to you, yes, I can give you the assessment, and actually it's not the same. So the qualification is really important, as Janet just mentioned. And I think it's very, very important to go and look at this. I mean, go on LinkedIn, for example. The gentleman asked about, how do I know that if it's real? If you go on LinkedIn and you Google dyslexic organizations or dyslexic assessors, you will find them. You will see a photograph of them. You know this is who they are. You can then, you know, decide if you want that. I know in the UK, there's a lot of places you can go to. HY Dyslexia, we're very local in Wandsworth within London. Now we've moved online. Unfortunately, we don't do our assessment online because the body this assessment body doesn't give us the right to do the assessment online. It has to be face to face. So that's one way of looking at it. Once you receive your report, and it's as thick as, like, I'm telling you, I mean, you all know, it's as big as a Bible, some of these reports, and you go right to the back of it and you think, what does all this mean? I only wanted to find out, am I dyslexic or not? And to be honest with you, when I read that line, I broke down and I wept like a baby. Because first of all, I didn't even want to know. I didn't want to be associated with anything wrong with me. Remember, I was born perfect. And of course, I'm born into a Christian home. So all I ever get is, listen, God will make a way. Yes, no, you rebuke that. You rebuke this. How many times have I been rebuking dyslexia? It ain't going nowhere. It's with me. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And it is real. So get the support, get the help. And believe me, you can achieve great things. And that's why I love the title of this Dentaa show. The True Gifts of Dyslexic Mind. It's phenomenal. There's no stopping us.
There's no stopping us. We ain't stopping. We're not, I mean, our ideas flow, even when you don't want ideas to come, they just, we just lay there and we're just getting ideas. We don't know what to do with it. But, you know, guys, it's been an amazing show. Liz, if you can just type your email addresses on here as well, so people can get in touch with you, any other questions. In terms of your organization, Elizabeth, how do people get on board? How do they, you know, subscribe to it?
Okay, so recently when the COVID kind of hit all of us and we thought, oh my goodness, what do we do? Or we were like working with people face to face. It made sense to us because a lot of dyslexics would say, look, show me. So people were coming to us. And then when the COVID hit, it was a very dear friend or colleague of mine, which is Janet Morgan, who I love dearly. She said, look, you might have to move online. And I was actually saying, well, actually, that's not going to work, is it? Because I'm not a technical person. So you may have to go online. And the reason why you may have to go online is because people are going to need your services. So we moved online. So we do live shows on Mondays, which talks about all the different conditions, and people who have really done really well with dyslexia come on the show. We've got a YouTube channel. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're everywhere. So if anybody wants to sort of find out about any of these things we've spoken about, they can always email the info box and then we'll be able to help them. But one thing I do want to stress though, we don't carry out the assessment remotely. It's got to be done face to face. I don't know when that will change. So locally, you might have to find someone that does the assessment and go to them. Of course, we've also got our phone number. People can ring us. We're very accessible, if that's the right word. There is nowhere one can say, I can't find you. You know, you just got to type in A to I dyslexia and we'll just pop up. And no matter what the question may be, we'll try our best to see if we can help. But I'm very sure that within the certain I don't know, in the UK, there's got to be a dyslexia assessment some way, somehow, that people can tap into. And that's us all over. That's what I want to say, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question, Dentaa.
You did.
Can I just say something, Dentaa? I just want to say, you are a true role model to many, many dyslexics within the Black community. I just really wanted to stress on that, because, you know, the work you do honestly, I've just got to clap for you, because I've got to clap for you, because the work you do, the Google Awards, the charities you support, it's just phenomenal. It's so amazing. And you are the face of dyslexia. And I just really want to just bow to you and say, you know, well done for what you're doing. And please carry on with the message that you've got, and please carry on with the work you do. And to me, you're phenomenal. You're just so amazing. You know, you're going to achieve some great things. And Raheem, what do I say? You know, you're phenomenal people.
So many qualifications, man. I mean, masters, lawyer as well. I mean, you've achieved so much, and you're such a great role model for young people that they can achieve.
Not quite a lawyer. Did the law degree? Not quite a lawyer.
The law degree, and that's not easy in itself. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, it's us really identifying people and just recognizing people that have different things and are excelling, to show others that, look, you may be going through this now, but look what Raheem did. Look what Tuli did. Look what Elizabeth has done. Look what Dentaa has done. Look what Achime Kwame has done. You know, so many people in our community have it. Yeah. But, you know, we just need to identify who they are and just showcase their beautiful talent.
Definitely.
But what would be your final words to our community, which I think needs to hear this? Raheem, what would your words be to people in our community who still don't want to kind of accept it? What would your words be to them?
Wow. I think for me, everything starts with acceptance. So for me, it's the acceptance that you have a beautiful mind and you are your own unique creation, and embrace that, because there's never, ever going to be anyone like you. And so on your pathway to finding that true acceptance, I wish you all the best in your personal growth, because the world is waiting to see your genius.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And Elizabeth, what would you tell those parents out there that they've seen that there's something, you know, with their child, but they're not too sure, and they're using negative words, and, you know, they're not encouraging their child? What would your words be to them?
Okay, first of all, I just want to say to a lot of, I can only speak from my Ghanaian community. I can't speak for the Jamaican. Are you from Jamaica, Raheem?
I'm claiming everything. So my dad's Jamaican. My mother's from St. Vincent. And yeah, there's a whole conversation in terms of my Yoruba, Mandinka, Jola heritage. So it's all in the mix there.
Okay, but I can only speak for my Ghanaian community, because that's the community I've grown up in. Now, I just want to say to the parents, stop saying to your child, you're stupid. In other words, in my native language, wejimi. Stop saying to the child, wabong, which means you're thick, so to speak, is the word they use. Stop saying to your child that, look, Grace is doing really well, why can't you do it? Stop comparing your children, because some parents will compare their children. Yeah, stop doing that. And lastly, if you're a parent and you've struggled like I have, like Raheem has, and like Tumi and Dentaa, then possibly you've got dyslexia. So you may want to get tested. Now, once you've got your assessment and your everything sorted out, it will make sense why Johnny's not learning the way he should be learning. Now, don't keep knocking them. Don't keep telling them that they're not going to amount to anything. Rather, use positive words. You know, it's all right, Johnny, if you don't get that maths right now. How best can I support you in this? Go and get that help for them. Because once they get that help, you as a parent will be proud of them. I can honestly put my hand on my heart and say, I'm so proud of my children for encouraging them, one, in what they're good at, and two, for accepting them for who they are. I've never compared my kids to any other child. you know, and that's the only message I want to get out to parents. Don't knock them. Don't use negative words on them, but rather just celebrate their successes, celebrate them, and see the differences in your children. If you've got one or two, if you've just got the one child, find out what the problem is. I can't even tell you the amount of times I sat at the dining table in tears, crying, because I wasn't just like my other siblings, you know. And it's only recently that one of my older siblings got to understand that, so it was dyslexia. That's why you were so naughty. That's why you were so bad. But it wasn't because I was so naughty. I was always expelled from school. You know, it was like, look, go on, you're expelled. Because I was always distracting the class. So going back to your question, Dentaa, parents have to make sure that you're there for them. It's not about work. It's about spending quality time with their children, with your children. And a parent came to me, you know, during the COVID time, and she said, I'm now growing to understand my child a lot better. So I'm thinking, well, what happened 10, 20 years ago when you're not, you know, understanding what they were doing? Because a lot of the times we put the onus on the teachers and we think they should be doing our job. But no, our job to also be there for our children and understand how they learn. Negative words is a no-no, but rather use praises and celebrate what they do. And honestly, children will just grow to something really amazing if we can do that.
Absolutely. Tumi, what would your advice be for friends, family members that look at us differently, teachers that don't really understand as well? Because not every teacher is going to understand us. They're going to think that we're naughty as well, and we don't, like Johnny's doing it. So why are you not understanding? Can't you see that everybody else is doing the work properly? Why are you disrupting the class? What would your advice and your words be to them?
Okay, before I answer that, I just wanted to say, on the subject of parents, I completely agree with Elizabeth about the importance of parents taking ownership. And I want to say shout out to my amazing parents who got the diagnosis at the age of 4, but because of their support, their belief, their willingness to spend money on support, on the different researchers to actually do the research, even when Google wasn't really a thing then, because I was born in 92. And yeah, I really want to say a shout out to them. In answer to your question, I would say everybody, whoever you are, we have a responsibility to do research and to get to know things that are different. The same way when we talk about Black Lives Matter, we say white people, it's on you to do research, to know our history, to know what's up. The same way we talk about feminism and we say men, do your research to get an awareness of women. The thing is, the world is getting to the point where you have to learn about people who are different to you. There's no more excuse to be ignorant. You carry Google on your mobile phones. Like, there's no excuse. It's actually laziness. It's laziness right now. So right now, what I will say is everybody should do the research. Get to know. Everyone that's watched this video, share it to 10 of your friends, even if they don't have dyslexia or not. They have, just share it and just be like, hey, this is what I saw. What do you think? We need to make sure that we're having these conversations. It's so important. Understand that, again, it's neurodiversity. You know, whether you have dyslexia or dyspraxia, or you don't have any specific learning difficulties at all, but if you have a brain, you are neurodiverse, because it just means a brain difference. So we need to really make sure that we're using the languages correctly and just embrace it. We're unique. We all have different DNA. We're all unique, so we have different brains. And if you would allow, I know I haven't really mentioned it, one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about the continent is because I founded a social enterprise called the Afro Health Initiative that's all about getting diaspora together to think about solutions to improve health outcomes of people on the continent. That's another reason why I'm like a rallying cry that, hello, this can't be just an issue in America or Canada or the UK. We have to think of the motherland, because governments are not going to be thinking about it. So we need to do the work as well. And Dante, you're such a good example of what a member of the diaspora, the impact that they can have on the continent. And I'd love to connect and talk to you more about how you managed to do this later. Thank you.
Absolutely. We will. It's been a great show. Very inspiring, very encouraging. And I pray that somebody somewhere sees this and is encouraged by it. You can go into a mental state with this when you don't understand it. You can lead your children into something that they shouldn't be doing because you don't understand it. And so it's just for us to really to spread the word so people can understand what dyslexia is. And then find that strength that we talked about. Your child has something somewhere, find out what that is and push them into that. And also, like Elizabeth said, invest in your child, invest in your children. That bag that you wanted to go, that holiday that you wanted to go on, don't do it. Get the right diagnosis of your child and better them from that. Because then you can take that to the school and say, look, I told you. Because sometimes they don't believe us as parents because, they feel like, oh, what's she talking about? The other children are doing fine. But actually, when you do show them, then they will give your children that extra support that they need. And again, I'm going to be challenging Elizabeth that next year, God willing, 2021, we need to do a big conference in Ghana for West Africa.
I'm coming with you.
Yeah,
I'm coming with you.
We're all there.
And basically discuss this. If it means for us to be doing a tour around schools in Africa, we need to be doing that. If it means that we have to call every single teacher that as are teaching our children on the African continent to this conference, we need to do that. Because I feel like the stupid words, the akwalaboni, we're Jimmy, and it affects us. And I remember so much, even though now my dad knows what I have. He's like, I regret it. I regret seeing all of those things. Because now look at my daughter. Look at my daughter where she is now. She's speaking in front of presidents.
Yes.
And so, your child is great. Your child is wonderful. They came into the world for a reason. Just find out that thing that they have and just push and nurture them.
And I think, just to add on to that, Dentaa, I think the Ghanaian education system needs to be aware. For example, the Nigerian education system needs to be aware of what this condition is for them to be able to train these teachers so that teachers are aware of what help the children need. Because it's great that we could possibly do a conference, but if the school system are not willing to maybe open their doors to accept that the condition is real, there will be no point of it, so to speak. And I know you got the connections.
By force, by fire.
The doors.
By force, by fire.
We have to. Because honestly, there's a lot of children that their confidence are this low.
Yes.
They have lost their self-esteem because they think that they believe that they are stupid. And so, whatever we have to do, if we have to break down those doors, we have to break it down.
Listen, I'm looking forward when the conversation also widens to HR professionals, because if you're looking at business, how many adults do we have in various roles that need the support on the continent? So it's a very, very needed conversation. Yeah, absolutely. And when we're thinking again about education, let's think broadly about this, because education is not just in school. It's in every aspect where you're looking at the training and the transfer of knowledge. So this is potentially a game changer for so many countries in terms of how we are actually going to imbue that self-esteem and that knowledge of ourselves to bring the best out in every person, in every facet of our society.
Yeah, I know we're running out of time. But for me, I would also stress that when we're thinking about dyslexia, dyspraxia, a lot of people talk about the educational system and employment, but you forget that after my 9 to 5 or my 8 to 3, I still have issues with dyslexia and dyspraxia at home. And that's a global, even in the UK, they haven't caught on to that. There's so much stuff that needs to be done because this is still a relatively new area. I think if my memory serves me right, the word dyspraxia was first used in like 92, 93, 94.
Yeah.
It's so early, so there's so much that needs to be done. And let me just say this now. Ghana is not the only place where they say bad names to children. Like, trust me, you know, the Yoruba names will be flying, Igbo names will be flying. Like, it's, and that comparison to other siblings and cousins and stuff like that, it happens all the time in different, all over the continent. So it's a big issue. We don't only just need to educate our teachers, we need to educate parents as well.
Let me just add something very quickly before we go. Just to say that 20% of the UK self-starters are dyslexics. So just to also say, dyslexics are great entrepreneurs, by the way. So you may have that husband or wife or a daughter or a son who is so creative at investing or what's the word, as an inventor of something. I can't find the right word right now. And that's when you know the true gifts of dyslexia. You know, great, awesome entrepreneurs. And Dentaa, you're a typical example of that. Look at the amount of organizations you've set up, even under just Google in itself, and where you're heading, you know? So, okay, the writing, the reading, the spelling may be an issue, but guess what? You've got the idea and you've got the people that can implement it, which is exactly what Tumi said earlier on. And I think bringing those two together can be amazing. And there's a lot of young people these days who I really take my hat off to them, doing some amazing stuff. And, you know, if any of them have got neurodiverse, they all need to be celebrated in you know, becoming inventors and becoming, you know, something that's never been done before. And, you know, these things are just great to celebrate. I just wanted to say that a lot of dyslexics are entrepreneurs, by the way.
Absolutely. Because, you know, when you look at like entrepreneurs that we've named previously, you have to be creative. You know, you have to be different, and they are truly different people. And that's why you will see the Steve Jobs has it, and all of these people, and Will Smith, because they are different. We're creative. We're born different, and let's appreciate that. Let's not even let it be a downer for us. And look at the positive things of being dyslexic. But yes, Sue, I know that, oh my God, people are really, really enjoying the show. Please make sure that you do share it with a loved one. You never know who may actually, because some people don't know. They actually do not know. Like the 40-year-old person that just came on and said, I did not know. Just by listening, now I understand that actually I've got either dyslexia or dyspraxia. So share it with somebody and they may, you know, get the help that they need. But it's been an absolutely brilliant show, very educative, very inspiring. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without my amazing panelists, who I'm going to keep in touch with. When I land back in the UK, we're going to have a meeting on putting on our first conference in Africa and getting moving as we should. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Dentaa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dentaa. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. I hope that you have enjoyed the show. It's been amazing, and just speaking to them and just realizing that, you know, I'm not alone on this journey. And, you know, you're probably sitting there thinking, actually, I'm not alone on this journey, because Elizabeth's gone through it, Raheem's gone through it, Tumi's gone through it, and all of the other people that are, you know, are watching tonight have gone through it. But the good news is that there's help and support out there. You don't have to feel alone. You don't have to feel depressed. And I'm someone that I always share that I'm dyslexic. Just encourage somebody, or just encourage somebody to Google and find out if they are too. But guess what? We're the most creative people in the world. That's a plus. So guys, thank you so much. I will see you on Thursday as we, you know, we'll talk about business opportunities, and on obviously Sundays it's about social issues. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. Make sure you email the team that have been on if there's any questions on even how to support their charities, because they need money to push the organization forward. We all need to support where we can. So please get in touch with Elizabeth, get in touch with Raheem, get in touch with Tumi. But I'll edge you on to support and donate to Elizabeth's charity and her organization as she pushes this agenda to make sure that everybody understands what dyslexia and dyspraxia is. So guys, I will see you next week. God bless you all for watching. And I know that you're sharing the pages as well. I will see you next time. God bless you all. Bye-bye.